Hello, folks. If anybody has a question, we're in our warm-up session here, and actually it's not a very hot section. This came in from, yes, this is a Karen too, different Karen, I'm pretty sure. But Karen is wondering what might be going on with her marigolds. The one on the left looks like a pretty decent marigold, and it looks like the kind of marigold, what's it called? Lemon gem and lemon gem, tangerine gem, and I think there's a third one. It's a marigold that has a smaller flower and a more fragrant and lacier look like this one. But what might be going on here? It does look like they've been infected at the base, doesn't it? Like they've gotten weakened at the base, and it could be damping off fungus. There's a couple of different funguses that can attack little seedlings down at the base, especially if it's moist. And if the air doesn't flow well, when we start from seed, we try to put the seed mix, the potting mix, all the way up to the top so that the air can flow across the top. When it's sunk like this, the air can pool and gather moisture. So it could be that, but I'm trying to remember whether damping off includes that kind of drying up and dying back of branches. So this might be one that I'm going to have to ask a few people about, and I'm asking you about if anybody has any clues as to what exactly is happening. That'd be my first guess. Judy was always very serious. Well, that's not true. She is seriously recommending to people, this is a very good weeder. It's called a skidger. It's got that ergonomic handle so that you're not putting a lot of pressure on your hand the wrong way. And the front of the V-blade, there's a plastic covering it here. The front of the V-blade as well as the inside of the V-blade are both sharpened. So you're pushing it back and forth. And it's for cutting little weeds out. It's not for big weeds, it's for hoeing to take out little weed seedlings that are there. A skidger, and she says it's just a fantastic tool. And Peyton, our Girl Scout who is coming to the Waterford Library with us, brought with her bees purchased by mail. She bought some solitary bees, the type called leafcutter bees that cut the circle out of the leaf and then lay their eggs inside a little tube that they make out of that cut piece of leaf material. And inside this tube were a bunch of those little coiled up pupating carton leaf cutter bees, which is kind of cool. It also came with a little box to put them in, and a little thing to fill with water to remind people that they need water too. It's pretty cool. I've never seen them by mail before. And my eyes are just stinging something awful this week. Great week to go to the eye doctor and have her say, your eyes seem irritated. Yeah, I guess. Can't really stay out of this mess that's going on out there. I was going to look, maybe somebody else already did look, for satellite images of what the smoke plume looks like. Because basically, we are sitting downwind of a campfire. And so there must be a plume of smoke that's like swirling down and across our area. It's worse for Sonia in Guelph. And it was worse for her earlier than it was for us with all the smoke in the air. So the smoke must have come down and kind of circled around, swirled around a little bit. But I've been missing being able to work in the garden. It's been cool enough first thing in the morning, and then, although the grass is kind of wet, you end up getting wet crawling around on the dewy grass. Yeah.
If Margaret says it rained in Royal Oak quite a bit, then it smelled like a wet fire pit out.
Yeah.
And then Lily was asking, I was wondering, with all the smoke in the air, will it affect my herbs and the taste?
It could, although plants don't necessarily absorb all the particles in the air. Let's see, they take in the gas, they break apart the molecules that they need, and they breathe out what they don't. It could accumulate particles, but they'd be inside the leaf, and I don't think they'd end up carrying the scent or the taste into your herbs. But herbs, depending on what part of the world they grow in, I mean, they do taste different in different places, so it could very well.
Yeah.
You'll have
And
to
with
let us know.
we see the difference in the sunlight. Maybe the plants notice it too. Um, maybe the herb isn't aging as fast as it would, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, we know that this is cutting down some of the sunlight, and we know that when there's enough of this kind of stuff in the air, like when volcanoes go off and it puts a blanket over the earth, like when the meteors, they say, hit the earth back in the age of the dinosaurs, it cuts out enough sun that it makes a difference to the plants. This time of year, I'm actually thinking that it's not a bad thing to cut some of their light. Our veronicastrum, when you were brought me pictures, and I noticed none of the veronicastrum is wilting. Normally this time of year, as they come into bloom during the day, it gets hot enough that they're wilting, but they're not wilting. Maybe because the solar radiation isn't quite as
Yeah,
intense out there. But
be interesting to know, but
there's so
I'm
many.
not going to do that study.
It'd be so good to be able to figure some of these things out, wouldn't it?
Yeah,
No question. Um, yeah, the air quality index was hazardous pretty much all throughout the area. We were at the top of the chart,
scale.
top of the scale, and in some places we were over the top of the scale. Up in, was it 800, Steve, that you saw in?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. 500 was the top normally, but
yeah.
and then where Sonia lives in Ontario, 11 is their number, and they're 11 plus right now.
Yep. We shall find out whether it affects Lily. We need you to report back to us on whether or not it affects the herb's taste. I will let you get us started, Stephen.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to Free4All Friday. This is our 82nd edition of get together with all gardeners that are welcome. You can come and celebrate growing and cultivate problem solving.
This is gardenatozz.org is our website, and I'm Janet Makovich.
I'm Stephen Nicola.
And we're not outside right now. In fact, we're pining away for outside because we're staying inside as much as we possibly can. We'll talk more about that later.
Yeah.
Gardenatozz.org is our website. Gardenatozz.org is our website, and we've put a lot of things that we've written, most of the things that we've written for the past 35 years, up on the website so that we can build on those and keep answering new questions, which you help us do by coming in on Friday and bringing your questions in, or some people text them in or email them in. You're welcome to do that. People email us pictures, they text us pictures, they give us questions and give us something to do to look up for Free4All Friday. We set them aside, and then on Free4All Friday, we send you a reminder that we've got a Free4All Friday today, or at any time you can just go to the Fridays page and click the link between 7 and 8 o'clock on the Friday. There is one Friday a month when we don't have a Free4All Friday. That schedule is on our webinar page because we do have webinars on some Saturday mornings, and when we have a Saturday morning webinar, we do not have a Friday session right before.
And again, if you're going to email us a question or photographs, try to get it in on Thursday. Not Friday is just too hectic to add new stuff sometimes. Apologies to those who send stuff, but we're limited in what the two of us can do.
They're listening to you, Steve. There was only one that came in today, and it said, "I'll be good. I'm not going to send you my question. Just letting you know I won't be there tonight, and I'll send my question tomorrow."
Well, I'm just saying.
Yeah. So they're listening. So we start out with your questions, or else we just go into things that have been causing us to, giving us stuff to do out in the garden, or things to think about. This was from before the fires, smoke got to us. Steve looked up one night. Must have been right around the 4th of July, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You were out there? Yeah.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
We had about 4 nights in a row that we had great color.
Yeah. Okay. I was looking into organic herbicides this week. People ask about them all the time. I swear to you, I do not hiccup all day long, and I am not drinking anything, but I get online here to do Free4All Fridays with you, and I start hiccuping. So forgive me. So I was looking up organic herbicides. There's some questions about them, and I got my new a new catalog this week that we use, and I thought, okay, let's look into what these are. And some of looking into it reminded me of something that Sonia's friend said to her one time. Sonia and Aaron did their PhD work together in college, became fast friends, and they both they share gardening experiences. And one day, Aaron sent a message to Sonia. She said, "Look at this bottle." She said, "Is it possible that I just spent $30 for vinegar and water?" And yes, that can happen with these organics. The catalog that came today is one that we like a lot. It's Arbico Organics. It's not just herbicides or pesticides. It is where we go for our botanical pest controls, our biological pest controls. It's got pages and pages of being able to buy lady beetles, pirate bugs, assassin bugs, green lacewings, predatory mites, you name it. If it's being raised by a lab somewhere to hunt other pests, they've got it. Parasitic wasps, you name it. And that's generally what we use it for. Primarily this time of year, maybe they know that my order usually comes in this time of year. This is the time of year when we buy beneficial nematodes. Beneficial nematodes, which are microscopic critters. They're related to the roundworms that can cause infection in people's toes, or the worms that dogs get. They're not like earthworms. Most of them are microscopic, and what they do is they occupy the bodies of things like grubs, caterpillars, depends on the type of nematode you get. They burrow into the body and eat it from the inside out. It's a terrible thing to think about happening, but it does happen. And for some of our pests, in our case, black vine weevil, it's very difficult to control, even if you do use pesticides, and we don't like to use pesticides, particularly systemic ones. But if I add beneficial nematodes at the time when these grubs are youngsters, this one's almost full grown, but when they're youngsters and just hatched out, they're toast with these things added in the soil. So anyway, that's what we use it for. And when people ask, well, which pests do you use them for? Which ones do you use? That's why we like this catalog so much. Other places sell beneficial nematodes. This one has really good information about figuring out which beneficial nematode to buy and when you put them on. The next page will go through and tell you which ones they have that you can buy. So ants, corn rootworm, fall flea beetles. I think there was one in here for mosquitoes. No, that's a different thing that they have going. But at any rate, that's what I like to use the catalog for. But I was flipping through the catalog and I saw weed control. Oh, I haven't noticed that they have weed control before. Organic weed control. So I looked them up. There in their catalog, they don't have unless you can really read, and I wasn't able to read really well, unless you can magnify their picture enough to read the ingredients. You can't read the ingredients, so I went online to find what the ingredients are in these things. And this first one, Green Reaper, what a great name, is 6% sodium chloride. Do you guys know what sodium chloride is? It's table salt. And 94% a combination of water, vinegar, and glycerin. The glycerin would be helping it stick. The vinegar would be burning the cuticle on the leaf. Sodium chloride would be burning the leaf too. This is a burn down chemical. It works on grasses and weeds, and lists some things to use it on. But it also tells you it's non-selective. It means everything that you touch, everything that it touches, if it's a green leaf surface, it's going to end up getting killed. It doesn't move down into the roots, although some of that sodium can stay in the soil, which isn't particularly good. It doesn't move down into the roots. It's just a burn down chemical. It kills the top of the plant. It's a little bit like hoeing them off or breaking them off constantly. The Earth's Ally is 90% water, vinegar, and soap, and 10% sodium chloride, so it's a little heavier salt. Jack's Deadweed Brew is 44% caprylic acid and 36% capric acid. I had to go to my chemist consultants and say, okay, difference between caprylic acid and capric acid. Capra is ghost, Capricorn. What's the Salix the goat willow or pussy willow is. So this is goat. This is an acid made from goat fat. So this is a fatty acid, which are often used as fatty acids of various things, that they too burn the cuticle of the leaf and attach themselves to the cells and cause the cells to die by dehydrating. I couldn't find out what the other is in these, and in talking to my chemist, that 20% other, in this case, not listed on the ingredients on any of the things I could find, is probably what they call a proprietary mix to help make the caprylic and capric acids stick to the leaf. Now, the reason that I'm looking at these at all is that you'd like to use something a little bit different. This torched weed killer is sodium lauryl sulfate, it's another salt, clove oil, and corn mint oil. The oil helps intensify the heat on the leaf and burn things in, along with some soap in the spreader sticker and some silica. Silica are little grains of, think of them as sand, only even smaller. And what silica does is abrade the surface of the leaf and help get the other things into it. And then the home plate, which is fatty acid, another caprylic acid, capric acid. Oh, I forgot to ask about the weed and grass killers that has nanoate in it. I'll have to look that one up. But the point is that all of these things are non-selective. It means that whatever they hit is something, if it's a plant, it's a green leaf, it's going to burn. So I can't spread it like you would the weed killers that they use on grass. The weed killers that they use on grass, many of them, most of them, are selective of broadleaf plants. Those things that are called monocotyledons, when they sprout from a seed, they have just one leaf. Corn, grass, all the grasses, oats, lilies are monocotyledons. And for whatever reason, monocotyledons aren't being killed by some of these things like 2,4-D, whereas 2,4-D will kill the ones that sprout with two leaves. But these organic ones are non-selective. So if you're going to use them, you have to use them in a place like, here's our lawn path coming out to the street. This corner right here is primarily quackgrass and a little bit of Johnson grass. So I suppose I could spray it on that and kill that all off. Personally, I'm just as happy digging it out. Here's this place where it's gone all patchy because so many of the plants lean out on this all the time. And it's become full of a couple of weedy kind of grasses. I could spray and kill that. Or maybe you want to use it on a patio. I come out in the morning, well, I'll do that in a minute. This is our bird patio. This is a bird. It's a stylized bird, but it came from Steve's picture. See Steve's picture of a bird taking off? That's what that is. It's a bird with its wings raised up and its head between its wings and the body and tail here. I like to be able to see the bird patio, the bird sculpture in our patio, and if weeds start growing between the rocks, they can quickly spread out and form a mat, especially this time of year. You know how fast weeds grow in July when it's humid and hot. So I keep the weeds down in our patio. By every morning when I'm having breakfast, I set a kettle on to boil. And when the kettle boils, I come out into the garden, I walk on the patio, and I pour boiling water around the edge of a certain set of stones. I might do these today, then I'll do these tomorrow. And what I'm doing is I'm killing the little bitty weed seedlings as they sprout because they can't handle the hot water. For me, that works fine, but if I didn't want to do that, I could be using one of these spray herbicides too. Does anyone use any of these and wondering, and can tell us how well they work for you? I see, I'm kind of hearing Steve's voice, but it's just through the wall. I see Karen is asking about the best weed killer that kills down to the root.
Yeah, I was muted.
Okay. Yeah.
So then, yeah.
The weed killers that move into the root are things like Roundup, and the new Roundup. Problem with the new Roundup is that it's mixed with other things, but the Roundup is its chemical action is to bind to the starch that cells in the leaf are making as they make sugars from sunlight and air and water. Some of it they convert to starch and send it down to the roots. Roundup binds to the starch that's being made in the leaf and puts it into a chemical formulation that when it gets to the root, can't be dissolved by the root and can't be used, so the roots starve. So that's how it moves into the root. And those are called systemic weed killers. Are there others? Well, 2,4-D is one. It's not Roundup. 2,4-D is one that moves into the root and kills the root. Trimec. Well, yeah, there are others, and you have to read the label to find out which ones are which.
Marilyn said she just made her own with Epsom salts and vinegar or use a crack weeder.
Right, correct. Vinegar, how vinegar works is it's an acid and it burns the cuticle of the leaf. And I've played around with vinegar here in the patio, and it works. It's a little bit ugly as the leaf. It's a big enough leaf, and you've got all that leafy material that's dying back, but it works. I tell people not to use salt, unless it's in a place where you're never going to be growing anything, and you're not worried about roots of special trees being underneath those stones. Then you could use salt there. But if you use salt in a place where there are roots underneath, you can change the makeup of the soil, the sodium, particularly the sodium in the salts. The sodium binds to the soil particle and makes it more unbreakable. The ions that it's holding don't come off, and the soil structure that makes it either big particles with space between them for water to flow, or makes them all join together too densely. It can make it too dense. So don't let sodium build up in your soil. That's too
There's Karen says the new Roundup trichlor
Trichoplyr is a different
stays in the soil, whereas gypsulfate kills roots without contaminating the soil. As I understand it, true. I would disagree.
We have disagreed.
But I'm not a scientist.
Okay, we have disagreed with that, and we did get backup on that from Dr. Alton King from Ohio State University. He was professor emeritus at the time, but to do Roundup first. Supposedly it doesn't stay in the soil, it doesn't bind to the soil. Neither does preen, which is preen's. I have to think about what preen's the name of the active ingredient in preen is, but those supposedly don't stay in the soil. But if you use them repeatedly and you mix the soil a lot, like in a perennial garden where you're digging things up and dividing and putting them back in regularly, or a bed that you're planting year by year over and over again, when you mix those things further down into the soil, they do stay bound to the organic matter in the soil, and in a heavy rain, flush out of the soil, get into the roots, and cause problems. So they can ruin the soil, and that's Roundup and preen. What the heck is your name? Trichoplyr does stay in the soil, and it's said to stay in the soil. It's used as a long-acting weed killer, so things that try to grow in it after you've killed the initial weeds that are there still keep picking it up and dying. Our neighbor used trichoplyr around the fence one time, and I had great dieback in my garden, a foot and a half away from where Ann poured the trichoplyr to kill the weeds on her side of the fence.
Some of these chemicals, in my opinion, should not be touched by homeowners.
Yeah,
They shouldn't be dumping this stuff into the soil. It's just
not unless we know better what we're doing. Preen is not corn gluten. Corn gluten is a derivative of cornmeal that and corn on its own does this. It puts chemicals in the soil. Sunflowers do the same thing. They put chemicals in the soil that are antagonistic to other plants growing. So corn gluten meal can work on certain plants. It doesn't work on other plants. You'd have to go online to find out. It's been a long time since they came out with it, and I looked it up. But it had a kill rate on some weeds that was equal to some of the commercially used broadleaf weed killers, but only on some weeds. On other weeds, it didn't have much effect at all. But that's corn gluten. I do know the name of one in preen, and it's going to come to me later, and I'm going to shout it out in the middle of nothing. But anyway, it's a different chemical that's in preen.
And Carol, yes, we were talking about the non-gypsum version of Roundup. She lost her internet connection for a bit.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the problem with Roundup is after its patent protection time expired, about going on 10 years ago now, other companies can produce Roundup and they're mixing it with other things. And these other things are often bad news for, especially for trees whose roots are in the area, because it's not just carried into the leaf and into the root, it's carried in the soil and the roots below it catch it. Maples in particular are very susceptible to it. Some of the needled evergreens are susceptible to it too. Judith wants to know about using vinegar to kill black swallowwort. Vinegar works well, particularly on young plants. So yes, you can mix up vinegar. I have not done it myself, but I remember looking up the percentage. It's a 10% vinegar solution. You might have to look online to see how much vinegar you mix with water to have it work well, but it does work, but it burns the leaf. And if you're using it on a bunch of swallowwort that's gotten big and overlapping, it's only going to kill the leaves that it can hit on the top. So you want to use it to kill the seedlings as they're coming up. That's your most effective use of a burn down chemical.
Suzanne, on another topic, monarch caterpillars are all over my milkweeds. Do I put up a screen to protect them?
No.
No.
Um,
It's nature.
Yeah, if you put up a screen, you're going to stop other monarch butterflies from laying their eggs on the milkweed. And unless you get unless you cover those plants immediately, and I mean within minutes of when the egg is laid, parasites can get into it. And even if you covered it up immediately, that's not going to stop parasites that might already have been within the plant, some of the parasitic wasps and some of the fungus that can get in there. So no, don't cover them, just enjoy them.
Yeah, let nature do its thing. If you want to, bring a couple in and give them milkweed to eat and watch them and release them.
Right. But do bring them
like
in.
Sonia does.
Right, do bring them in as soon as you see the egg laid. It's really discouraging to have the egg turn into something other than a caterpillar, or the caterpillar turn into something other than a butterfly at the end.
Yeah.
Steve and I are of the opinion, we've raised them for years inside, but now we're of the opinion we're trying to have a garden that sustains them naturally all the way through. So they're out there and we're working with them to try to keep them going. We asked during our last meeting with the group here, it was during our webinar, and we asked people about deer-proof plants because someone had written us and said, help me out, they're really just eating me out of the house and home. I have deer resistant, that's not working. What's deer-proof?
Plastic.
Yeah, plastic. So this week got from two different people, this from Nancy. She said, here are my daylilies, and here are my daylilies the next day. Yes, these are really good, by the way, these buds. There is this bud that's just beginning to show color. You harvest that, slice it up into pieces and put it in your omelet. It's really good. So they are tasty. If deer don't get them, muskrats like them. I've seen the muskrats come and harvest a whole bunch of stems, put them in their mouth like a bouquet, yep. Swim across the water with them. But at the day after Nancy sent me this, was when Chuck sent his and said, look, they ate my lilies, they're eating my daylilies. Yes, there are things that they like. And so we asked people during our webinar to put names into the chat of plants that deer have not eaten in your garden, for sure have not eaten. Because we have, for instance, this is from our What's Coming Up, number 33. It's one of those that you download the magazine to read it or bring it up on screen by clicking on it. And it tells me that deer resistant, deer immune on page 3. And if I go to page 3, we've got a list of plants. And I put on that list, I put a little hash mark on some of them that I keep finding on lists, like they don't eat Rosa Sharon. I went, oh, in my experience, yeah, they do eat Rosa Sharon. I've seen them eat Rosa Sharon right down to the ground, and hydrangeas too. So every list that we had seen had something in it that was going and being eaten someplace else or reported by somebody else as eating. So we asked you to add to the list, and we came up with this list. This is from chat last time, and I'd like those of you who are there and those of you who are here now, if you've got a plant in your garden that you know that deer have not touched, although you do have deer in the garden, if it's not on this list already, let's get them put on. I'm missing some things from this list. Oh, I know, I changed the other list. I'm missing a couple from this list. For instance, a stilby always used to be on the list because they didn't need a stilby. Then in one of our gardens in Ann Arbor, one of our clients' gardens in Ann Arbor, they just moved in on the astilbe. Ferns were always on the list. They said, this is good, put in ferns, they don't eat ferns. They moved in on another garden, they moved in on the Japanese painted fern. They were eating them down to the ground. I thought one day, I said, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to put in monkshood, aconitum. Hope I didn't asterisk it. I should have asterisked this one. I'm going to put in aconitum, monkshood, and digitalis, foxglove, because these are deadly plants and they won't eat those. I forget, what's deadly to us is not necessarily deadly to deer or birds or rabbits. So anyway, if somebody's got any different ones, I'll add them to the list as I send it back to Chuck. And we'll leave this posted and updated on our Friday recordings. Trifluralin, Treflin, thank you, Marilyn, thank you very much. And I have not heard of isobapsin. It's trifluralin or the Treflan that I was used to.
Yeah, it's a bad year for deer with babies because they're having 2 and sometimes 3, and that's
it's a lot for the garden to support. Now, what deer eat is not going to say that it's going to keep your rabbits from eating it. I have not seen deer eat veronica. I haven't seen rabbits eat veronica, but somebody ate my veronica a couple of years ago, and it might have been a groundhog. I don't know. Was it a groundhog who didn't know what he was doing? I don't know. You got to watch these things for a while to find out. Speaking of groundhog, here's our guy, Steve. Nancy next door got a picture of him. She calls him Chuck. And not only was he there by the feeder, and this is underneath her feeder where she's collecting the fallen seeds in the bucket, but he then said, I'll just follow those seeds into that bucket there. He is such a chunk that when I scared him the other day, he was eating clover in the lawn and he ran off. It was like a horse running off. It was galloping. You could hear the thumps on the ground, thump, 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 as he took off. Yeah, so it's not going to guarantee that it's not going to be eaten by some other kind of animal. So anyway, anybody else? Did I put an A in Bethlehem sage?
I don't know. I didn't notice.
Pulmonaria. Oh, yeah. That's all E's. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much.
It
2 years.
would have been normal if that was my typing because I misspell almost everything.
Yep. I'm making a note right now, and I'll change that when we revise this list. And you're right, Ruth. Lamb's ear. They don't eat lamb's ear. In fact, pretty much everything in the mint family, lamb's ear being one of them, gets a pass. Lavender gets a pass in most cases. So, mint. We should change that to say mint family, not just the mints. And Bethlehem. Thank you. Good. So if you think of them as we go along here today, go ahead, add in, and I'll add them into the list. There's where I added on the list. All the salvias. Caryopteris has been rock steady for us, except that the mites eat it.
Yeah.
It's not one thing, it's another.
Lily's wondering, what about garlic? I never noticed. No,
I've not seen them eat garlic. There are people who said allium. They don't eat allium, but we've seen them eat allium. They'll eat chives, so I suppose they might eat garlic too. I guess what we need to do is fall back on somebody who's been growing garlic regularly and has deer in the garden.
Yeah.
Deer don't eat your coneflowers, Michelle. Tell somebody to clone those deer because they come, oh man, do they love our coneflowers, purple coneflowers. They don't usually eat the Rudbeckia. Black
don't you wish something would eat some of these weeds, like the black medic or even poison ivy?
People have said that so many times, and I have, even this year, I took some pictures of some of the weeds. Weeds get leaf spot and get eaten. Wait, what did I should have put the picture in. What did I just show you, Steve? I said, look, they're eating crabgrass.
The crabgrass.
The rabbits eating crabgrass.
Yep.
It's okay by me. I've also seen geese eat the crabgrass. So, I mean, the weeds do get eaten. It's just that we don't care as much and don't look as much for them. Okay, and here's where I'm glad that Chris is here tonight, because I forgot to put this in earlier. And this is another example of the compromised roots from keeping a plant in a small pot until it gets big. So Chris has a new red bud. She put it in this year. And when she took it out of the pot was a little bit deeper than this. And she took it out and she found, you see this root going right across? Big main root wrapped right around. That's going to kill the tree. As the root expands in size and the trunk expands in size, they cannot graft. Two branches can graft together, two roots can graft together, but root and trunk cannot graft together. And so what they'll do is they'll squeeze each other out. Usually it's the trunk that ends up getting killed. So Chris, you're here today. Did you cut this root? Because I would have said, you have to cut that root. You have to take that root out of there. And it's a main root. I know it's going to set the plant back some. Can you tell us what you did? Marilyn says that the Eryngium, which is called sea holly, so far so good for 3 years. All right. Eryngium, let me see if I can remember what plant family that's in, and we'll let that go. We add it to the list. We can always change the list again in a couple of years when somebody says, no, they've learned how to eat something. So I would have taken a saw, literally a saw, and cut this root here and gone back to where it first curved away from the trunk and cut it off so that the stub, whatever was left of it, was sticking out away from the trunk. And the plant would have to grow new roots. There's just no getting around it because it's that or it dies.
Just said cut it at the point where it started to turn.
Good. All right, Chris, good. So she did cut that big root out of there, and then as much as you can bend these other roots outward or clip them so that they don't bend back, because that root can get big and eventually cut into the trunk too. And here it is now. It survived, despite the fact that it looks like, oh my gosh, I can't cut that big root. It didn't kill it. It's still going. It does have chlorosis. We talked about chlorosis in, I think that might have been during the webinar. Chlorosis is the plant anemia, the plant equivalent of anemia. The moisture, the liquid that's coming up to the leaf from the roots has enough nutrient in it that as it floods the veins and cells next to the vein get enough nutrient. But the further away that moisture moves in the leaf, the less of any goodness it has in it. And so you have weak cells out here. Chlorosis can mean that your soil is deficient in nutrient, but it can also mean you don't have enough roots to pull up enough stuff for this plant. And so this one, as it grows year by year, can start getting, it's a mathematical equation. How many leaves can make nutrient to make new roots? Once you've got more roots, then you can support more leaves, but it has to get itself back into balance, and that might take several years. You can also mix up fertilizer, liquid fertilizer, and on a day, not a hot day, not a sunny day, you can use a sprinkling can and pour your sprinkler on so that it hits the leaves, not just straight down into the ground. Some of that nutrient can get directly absorbed into the leaf. It's not going to fix where it's already pale, but new leaves coming out, it can help. So yes, you can do it. Yes, you have to do it. We'll shortly be doing that. I think it's on August 7th. We'll be doing some planting related to another thing we'll show you here tonight. And that tree too is probably going to have some compromised roots. It was fun this week. We have not been out much. Monday and Tuesday I got to go out, but the rest of the week, for reasons we'll cover later, we've been letting the gardening wait. But I was out earlier, and it's so much fun, as long as you can wait for it to see what hybrids Mother Nature will make for you. So out along our path into the yard, we have this area here that has the straight species purple coneflower, Echinacea purpurea. It also has, and it's not visible right here, we also have Echinacea pallida with it's pale purple coneflower, and the petals are much thinner and hang down like a badminton shuttlecock. And also not visible here. Are they done blooming, or did somebody eat them, Steve? There's also
It might have been done blooming.
There's also a yellow purple coneflower, Echinacea paradoxa. Why do we call it purple coneflower when it's yellow? Good reason to call it paradoxa. And those have been spreading, coming up by seed in different places, and we're watching them come up, and we're seeing hybrids, which is what we wanted, between those three species. So here's pretty much what the straight species Echinacea purpurea looks like. Here's what Echinacea pallida looks like. And these aren't as pretty as when they're out in the sun. Here's one of the hybrids. Can you see that the petals are longer and thinner? This one, they're longer and thinner and easier seen on this one. Do you see the yellow that they're picking up?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so cool. I don't know how long it'll be before we get some but we'll put them in and watch and see what happens.
Yep, it sure is fun. We do it with the pestamens too.
Yeah. Judith is asking, and while we're here, and before we move on to the next topic, Judith is asking about peppers and eggplants that are pretty routinely chlorotic. What you can do for them is give them a weak solution of a weak liquid fertilizer solution pretty much every time you water, because they are fast-growing, hungry plants. If there's any chance that their roots are bound, you know how when they come in the little pots, if you didn't slice those roots or pull them apart, the roots might be root bound, and it could help to dig next to it, check and see if it's still root bound, and slice the roots. You can still do it now after you've planted it. But yeah, you can use a liquid fertilizer a little bit all the time. Okay. Earlier this year, in May, so a couple months ago, we told you about a problem that Sonia, our daughter, who's here for the webinars, and many of you know her, quite the gardener. They were having a big problem because construction going on a neighboring property is damaging their plant. This is Sonia standing next to her cherry tree. They planted this cherry tree next to the lot line. The lot line pretty much is on the fence. And they planted it 5 years before this picture. This is the 6th year that the plant's in place. And just giving you a scale. We picked cherry, and Sonia and Cam picked the place because we wanted a fast-growing fruit tree. They wanted to be able to harvest fruit, but they needed it to be fast-growing so that it would hide some things they didn't want to see. So the house next door, here it is. So there's that fence, and here's her vegetable garden up here, just going off the picture. There's her vegetable garden. There's the top part of that fence. There's that house next door. This year, boom, heavy equipment moves in and tears down the house, and then begins scooping out the backyard. This is a pear tree. The cherry tree this is the leaf of the cherry tree just outside of the picture. Sonia runs next door to say, "What are you doing over there?" They're coming right up to the fence, right up to where the cherry is planted, and digging down. This was when they started, and when Sonia first got there, this is now a 3-foot deep excavation right next to the fence. And this is bad news for the tree. There's the tree's roots as they go deeper. It's just scraping and dragging those roots out. The plant's not going to have any roots on that side at all. Sonia and Cameron, our son-in-law, went to the city and said, "What's the deal here?" It turned out that their construction permit had not been improved for this property. The demolition permit had been approved, but not the construction. So they were able to get it to stop for a while they asked about it. But now yesterday, it started again, and Sonia heard the noise and went out to find where they've poured a foundation and begun putting framing, and they're only 3 feet from the fence. Found a carpenter with a sawzall hacking at branches of the cherry. Now, those of you who know the rules, and we've talked about them before, know that you do have the legal right to cut parts of plants that come across the property line into your property if you do not damage the health of the plant. And these guys were just ripping in. Sonia stopped them and had to do some talking to the neighbors. So see, here's when they first put it in, this was the idea. Here's everybody's sheds and garbage cans and all kinds of things, and they wanted something that would keep them from seeing that. And over the years, in 4 years' time, already they were pruning out the center of it to keep it healthy. And then it got to be the good-sized tree that they were waiting for. For those of you who wonder about this kind of thing, Sonia has been diligently pursuing it. She's called the city, she's called arborists, she's called the construction company. The construction company said, oh, we sent an arborist out there. And Sonia said, you certainly did not send an arborist out there. You had a carpenter with a sawzall. That's not a certified arborist. If somebody's going to cut the backside of my tree, I want them to be cutting it properly. They gave her the name of the arborist. Sonia contacted the arborist, who said, I wash my hands of those people. I will not have anything to do with those people. So Sonia came called back and said, you got to stop doing this until you get an arborist out there. Oh, we found another one and he'll be out between 2 and 4. We had one out earlier. And they said, no, you didn't. They said, and we were going to call you. I said, no, you weren't going to call us because you've never contacted us. You don't have our number. It's just obviously a big deal to get construction going, and anything they can do and say to stop obstructions to that construction, they were going to do. I did the very bad thing of, once I looked into my legal books about plants on a lot line, I told Sonia, if you can't get a hold of your lawyer quickly enough, but you're pretty sure your lawyer will back you on this, you go ahead and write the letter as if it's from your lawyer to say that you have to cease and desist until you prune this plant properly, and go nail it to the studs that they're putting up. And that would have been fraudulent. So I'm glad that Sonia didn't listen to me. But just so you know, that's what's going on now, and it's still unfolding. What will happen next, I don't know. Sonia's called her own arborist to see if she can get it pruned that way, because it has changed the whole yard. It shades the yard, it blocks their view, it's done exactly what they wanted it to do, and there's no reason that it can't stay there. Questions?
Nothing in, that's, Chris has, hydrangea also looking chlorotic.
And some of the hydrangeas might be looking chlorotic because they might have damaged wood this year. But it's not unusual for hydrangeas, which grow very quickly in the spring, and this year started up into growth early, as they normally do, and then it got cold and damp, and the soil stopped releasing, well, the things that live in the soil. Because the soil was cold, those things stopped processing organic matter and stopped releasing nutrients. So for a while, the hydrangeas were growing in nutrient-poor soil. So you might find that you're going to have to use some liquid fertilizer on your hydrangea too, but it would help to do that in the beginning of next year, not now.
Nancy is wondering, is there a reason why the tree was planted so close to the property line, Sonia's?
Yeah, we picked that place for it because it could be espaliered. It could grow flat. We said you can just prune it, and that's what Sonia was starting to do. You can just grow it flat in 2 dimensions. And they have a very narrow very shallow backyard. Putting it anyplace else in the backyard would put it in the middle of the lawn, which makes it subject to problems with mower being beaten by the mower, and also not necessarily blocking what they wanted to block right away. Yeah.
This is a neighborhood that this is the first house that they're doing it, that they tore down an old one and then putting in a Bigfoot.
Yeah, it happens.
And it's gonna be miserable.
And as we said in one of our webinars, we talked about construction damage and the fact that we tell people, if you can avoid it, don't plant on the lot line. Our son needed a tree in the backyard. The neighbor said, oh, I've always wanted to have one of those. We can plant it right on the line. I said, I love it that you like the tree, Gwen, but I'm going to plant it over here about 4 feet out from the lot line, because we can't tell who's going to be here later. And you don't want to cause this kind of thing to happen between a gardener on one side and a non-gardener on the other side.
Yep. The flowers, that's our bottle brush buckeye shrub in bloom, part of it.
Yeah, that's our native Aesculus parviflora, and it's in bloom right now. We have it in our yard because hummingbirds like it, and we like them to have something natural to eat in the yard, and also because it's one of our native plants that deer don't eat.
Yep. They haven't yet.
Okay. So we started, so this week on Wednesday morning, real early, and I'm glad real early because it was right before it got really smoky and hot. we did a workshop that we wish that some of you had come to, because it's a great way to visualize with real plants what the design is going to look like. And I'll show you what we did. We were in Nancy and David's yard that have this beautiful container, which, by the way, I'll come back to later. And they've got beautiful beds everywhere that not only are beautiful, they're beautifully maintained, but they're chosen for flower. Look at this. This is a round, taller plant. Here's a blue, shorter plant. Here's a purple leaf plant next to a blue-green leaf plant. They use all the different aspects of planting when they plant. And they wanted to do a new bed in the front yard. We talked about it earlier on a Free4All Friday quite a while back. So we want a tree in the front, and this Japanese maple, it's just too exposed. It's not going to be able to stay there. So after some discussion on the Free4All Friday, we ended up proposing a Tina crabapple. That's a Sargent crabapple, dwarf form, and even a bit weeping. And they said, yes, we like that. And we worked up a list of things to plant with it, and it's to go in the front yard. I suggested don't put it quite so close to the walkway, because it is going to hang over in the long run, and you could make more of its background of the house moving it elsewhere. So David is being a Tina crabapple. A Tina crabapple is right, its top is right here, as purchased. It will be about 6 feet across when it's full grown. So David is being the tree for us who are standing back and pretending we're approaching the house and saying, well, what will be the background there? Does that work for it to be there? Yes, we think we kind of like it against there. We could move it over and make it look like it had a juniper on either side of it. But Nancy and David's yard isn't very symmetrically balanced. It's more asymmetrically balanced, with the exception of the matching junipers on either side. So we put it in with one juniper, in front of one juniper in front of the house. After we put it down, these are other plants that they've purchased to go in. We put the winter interest framing that tree first. So if we put the tree there, let's put a frame around it of things that look good in the winter. Coral bells, blue star juniper, and evergreen liriope. So we'll put a cluster of green and white stripes over here, the blue low fine textured here, and the coarse yellow out here a little bit. Now those are all going to grow. These will grow into a mass and can be moved closer, or more can be put in right away. But we also had picked Veronica, one of the blue short Veronicas, gets blue spike flowers on it, and catmint, and so those can go into. This is a catmint called there's a lot of catmints with names like cat's pajamas and meow. I can't remember what this one's name is, but we put those in here, so those will be there during the growing season, but not during the winter. So let's put them on either side of the plant this way. After we put it there, then we looked at it from different places. We said, well, what about when you get out of the car and you're walking into the house? How does it look from there? Are things blocking each other? Really look balanced? Yeah, that could kind of work. And from the front door and the window in the study, we looked out to say, how does it look from there? From here, this is from the study window, the tree would be blocking the neighbor's driveway, which is not a bad thing to block. I mean, who wants to look at a driveway? From the window further over, which I think is the bedroom window, the crown of the tree is going to get lost in the crown of this one next to it. But they said, to see out that window into our garden, you'd have to walk right up to the window, so not going to be a place they see all the time. But we moved things around quite a bit. We picked them up, we moved them around, we tried them here, we tried them there. It's a lot better exercise for people who are not used to visualizing plants than to draw them on paper and try to figure it out. Then we decided, Nancy said, I think I'm going to buy more plants. I said, we don't have to buy more plants. Let's make the bed smaller, and let's make sure that you can mow around it easily. You don't want to have an edge that you can't mow easily. I've told a number of people that since I've taken over mowing the lawn, long story there, but I mow the lawn now, but for nearly 50 years, Steve always mowed the lawn. And I don't understand, now that I mow it, I don't understand why he didn't divorce me a long time ago. The beds that I put in were not easy to mow around at all. This is an easy line to mow. Now we'll go back and we'll plant this David and Nancy are going to take a little bit of time, and on August 7th, we're going back in the morning on August 7th, and we'll plant, and probably we will shift things around. We'll also take this tree that's too big for that size pot, which probably has compromised roots, and we'll work those roots out. So it'll be a little like working with Chris's redbud. I'll show you what we do. We've marked them with paint. Here I'm with a white spray paint can, and I've made a circle where this was sitting and where this was sitting. And I put a C for catmint, and on these I put a V for Veronica. David is marking the outside edge with green paint along his rope. Some people say that they use a garden hose to line out a garden and imagine what it is. I hate fighting with hoses. I can't get them to lay out nicely, but rope works pretty well for me. Yeah?
Nancy is wondering, how do you plan on removing the grass?
David does like we do for an immediate garden, for this year garden. He's just going to cut it and lift the sod out. It's good sod. It's not got any deep-rooted perennial weeds in it like our utility turf does. So it'll be a matter of cutting around the edge, cutting once in, lifting out the sod, and putting it upside down to rot someplace else in the garden. Maybe bringing in a little bit of sand or something to add to the soil. Probably won't need it though. If we had time, if we didn't have these plants sitting on hold waiting to be put in, we could outline the edge of the bed, and I've done this many times. I could outline the edge of the bed by cutting with a spade, cut one more time just inside the edge, lift up that whole outside line, take the sod out and turn it upside down in here in the interior of the bed. Now I've got the interior of the bed separated from the colony of joint roots on the outside, and now we can put newspaper and mulch on top of the whole thing and smother that whole area. But for that you need more time.
Nancy Reynolds said it was Prelude Blue catmint.
Thank you, Prelude Blue. Oh, so it's not one of the ones named for cats.
Yeah. And then Nancy G said she heard of a new catmint, Chartreuse on the Loose, with a variegated leaf.
Cute name.
Yeah. And John's wondering, what is the ideal place for a Japanese maple?
The ideal place for a Japanese maple would be, let's see if there's a picture here. This is, I think it's a ginkgo. No, it's a maple. This tree and this tree, if that was your backyard or your front yard, and they were limbed up a little bit, limbed up as in had lower branches taken off, underneath other trees or to the east side of these trees, so that the west wind and the west sun would be moderated through the branches of those other trees, even in the wintertime. That would be a good place for a Japanese maple. They are naturally understory trees. I've seen them growing on the edge of the woods. So maybe in this yard, if there was a Japanese maple planted right here, it would grow and kind of hang out, but they still burn. Their leaves need the protection of that little bit of filter, that little bit of screen that deciduous trees above them gives them. So we did a webinar on container planting, and I apologize to people that we meant to try to go and get all the cool container pictures we could from people that we knew, and we'd fallen down on the job. We just weren't seeing that much that was different. And I thought this week, a couple people sending us pictures made me realize it's not too late. If you have planted some great containers this year or have seen some, send us the pictures. We'll put them all together and share them with people, because a good idea is a good idea. Nancy's container that I showed you a minute ago with, I gotta go all the way back to it, sorry. There. With tuberous begonia and coleus of 2 colors. I said, oh, that's great. Did you do that? She said, I did that a couple of years ago. And I thought, why? It's such a good combination. Why change it? So I've planted it again. When you find out that those plants not only look good together, but grow well together. Some plants don't grow so well with other plants. It's a good one to keep. So
Nancy does have a hand up.
You were talking about the ideal place for the Japanese maple, and we thought that we had a place in the backyard where we could move it, where the arborvitae would be behind it, a serviceberry would be on one side of it, and and Osakazuki would be on the other side. So it would be in a more sheltered place. However, we did an initial dig in there, trying to dig, and there's so many roots. How do you deal with that? There are roots from the arborvitae, roots from the serviceberry, roots from the Osakazuki.
Yeah. The only way that I have dealt with roots that are already filling the soil someplace is I cut the small roots that I can cut to make some space. I take the new plant down to as bare root as I can in order to spread its roots out and over the roots that are already there.
Mhm.
If you just totally cut into the roots and plant your plant, those roots that you just cut from each of the ends that you cut are going to grow with all the energy of a million leaves that they already have into the hole that you made. But if you leave as many roots as you can and add your roots to the mix, if they're an understory plant, they can grow together. It means that starting with a smaller plant is better. But arborvitaes in particular they are greedy plants. Arborvitaes and privets, which are used a lot for hedges, they have a very dense root system. And for instance, Pat up at Lavender Lane Herb Farm up north said she is never again going to use arborvitae as a hedge behind her herb gardens because it's so hard to grow plants with them. So some plants are easy to grow. Oaks are great to grow with. Some of the maples are better to grow with. Purple blow maple, Japanese maples, even the red maple are better to grow around than sugar maples are and Norway maples are. It's a different root system. So some roots are just better for allowing another plant to have room to grow in there.
So that area we probably shouldn't even attempt.
When you say that it's full of roots, is it fine roots or you got a lot of heavy roots in there?
Well, we tried with the roots layer and we
It went
could,
down an inch.
yeah, it went down an inch.
Yeah, then you've got heavy roots in there. So no, I wouldn't use that space.
Okay.
Boy, yeah, but it's hard to find a place for them. And when you're looking for a place to find them, the shelter that they need is generally from the west and the northwest, primarily in Michigan, because our severe winds come that way in the winter, and wind is not good for Japanese maples. Also, the afternoon shade in the west is better for a tree to get some cool on it. So when you look and say there's something on the west side, good. Does it block the wind? Does it block the sun? And that's what you're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that would be a great space if it weren't for the roots.
And knowing your house, now that I've been there a couple times, Nancy and David, you are at the high point of, if not your township, if not the county, certainly your township, where your subdivision was built. I was told that before that area was developed, you could stand there and you could look to the southeast and you could see ships on the Detroit River.
Oh,
So you catch a lot of wind. And
we
that-
do.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
We
that
do.
wouldn't be so the whole neighborhood is windy, and that's all that much more important to find a place that's more protected. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. So back to containers. If you've got cool pictures and you want to share your ideas with people, please do. This is going the wrong way. These are Carol said, here are some of the seasonal ones I put in. She said a combination of dried flowers and silk flowers in some of these. Aren't they pretty?
Yeah.
Very nice. And then just plain charming. The combination of colors in the mum and the combination of colors in the face on the bucket is great. So if you've got some, send them. We'll put them together and we'll share them with people, and that way they can get some inspiration, because we need inspiration from each other. Or this one, which is a nighttime planter. Although we're more and more, Steve and I have been for a long time down on lights in gardens at night. When you're out there, turn them on, enjoy them. But these people who leave lights on all night long, we're really ruining the bug's life out there. I went out one morning this week It was before the smoke started. And it was shortly before dawn. I usually like to get out there when it's light enough to see, but before dawn so that I can work in the cool. So it was maybe 5:30. And there were 4 bats working our yard, circling our front yard. They were not circling the neighbors across the street with just lawn. They weren't circling the neighbors on either side. They were staying above our lawn because we're the one where the insects, I'm sorry, lightning bugs, but lightning bugs, moths, those kinds of things are there. And we like to be feeding and have a self-sustaining wildlife garden.
For sure.
Yeah.
It's just about time, by the way.
Okay, good. I'm not sure. Sonia is here. Sonia, you're here. Guess what I saw? The unexpected garden. Just saw it today. Look who came back. Remember last fall I said I didn't get the voodoo lily dug out because the ground had frozen so quickly? Look what made it through the winter and took all the way until July to come up. Now it's not going to be big enough to bloom, but it is alive, and I can still lift it and keep it, and you bet I am going to keep it now that I know that I got such a survivor out there. And that's not the only thing that happened. I put this calla lily just for fun last year or the year before over in what we call Tracy's garden, the garden I did for the neighbors. And that calla lily is getting bigger every year, and it's close to 3 feet tall. They're also not supposed to be reliably hardy, and that can happen. Some of these, we have some others that are coming up that are like zone 7 or zone 8 plants. They're never going to get big enough to bloom out there, but they just keep coming back from little bits left in the ground. It's another of our pumpkins, Steve.
Yeah, they're so cool and grow so fast.
Yep. Look at the size of the leaf on that prairie dock. That leaf has got to be 3 feet long. One leaf.
You harden it and it'd be a paddle for a canoe.
Yep. I'm pretty sure that everybody here understands that smoke is no joke and we should not be taking it lightly. We are in the smoke of the fire, just like standing down one of a campfire. And what's particularly bad about smoke from fast, hot fires like this is that the particles in it have gotten burned so small that they're called microparticles. And it includes the stuff that burns on combustion engines and floats in the air. Those particles are so small that they can penetrate the lung tissue along with the gas and end up in your bloodstream and in your heart, and they are not good for your heart. So especially if you're exercising heavily and you're breathing in and out heavily, you're gonna hurt yourself. I'm retired now. I don't have to go out and work, and I'm not going out and work. But even when we were working professionally, and maybe this will just clue you into just how little Steve and I valued making money while we were working, we didn't go out on days like this.
No.
No, we said, okay, we're calling it off. We'll call the clients and tell them, I'm sorry, we're just going to have to be late, but we are not going to put people at risk.
And that includes the really hot days too, not just the smoggy instance.
Yeah, but especially the smoke.
Yep. The smoke is really bad.
Stay out of it and know your air conditioners. You should be running your air conditioner on recirculate unless you have an air conditioner unit that has a HEPA filter, because these are very fine particles. It's going to pull them in from outside. Steve and I have been living in the lower level where it's cooler and keeping everything closed up. But that's the way that it is. And we hope it goes away a little bit now. Okay, so quick looks. It's dangerous to go outside, so just go and look. Here's this monarch caterpillar on our orange milkweed is just the size now. He's full grown. He, look at the poop, caterpillar poop there. It will now wander off from that plant, and it may end up over here pupating on this sea lavender. It might end up over here. It could be 25, 30 feet away, but it'll leave that plant and probably leave that plant and go pupate someplace else. And no, I'm not going to stop it from doing just what it wants to do naturally. Our Bergarten sage, which we love, is a great combination with gentian septimfida. Such a beautiful bloom, but over the years it's gotten big enough that it's close to smothering it. I might have to move something there. There are a number of plants that are early this year. This is big leaf aster. This is a September bloomer. but it has already developed flower stalks on the newer portions of the plant that are already opening. What else is new? Is early, Steve, coming up? Our cup plant is early. Prairie dock is early.
Some of the hydrangeas are
Right.
striking me as a little early.
Yeah. So things are a little bit different this year. Our volunteer pumpkins, and we have quite a few of them because in the fall and right after Halloween, I steal pumpkins that people are throwing out. I bring them to our garden and chop them up into little pieces and spread them around the garden because they're a good source of potassium and our soil is low in potassium. So we get these volunteers, and this is one that I showed you a while ago. It kept growing onto the sidewalk, our front walk, so I pushed it to the side, and I bury the stems at intervals along the way in order to get more roots. This was our first female flower on this vine, and I pollinated that pumpkin with, this is a male flower with the pollen, you can see the pollen grains in there. I took that male flower, broke the petals down, and then pushed the pollen grains onto the stigma of this flower 1 week ago. And that's what's there in 1 week. We have a potential for a really big pumpkin over there. I'm going to keep.
Yeah, that's bigger than a softball right now.
Oh yeah, that's
Oh,
almost
it's getting close to football size.
Yep. And I'll be cutting off the flowers elsewhere on the plant. I don't want the plant to spend energy making other fruit. I'll be burying other parts of the plant to make sure that there's more nutrient coming in, and we'll see if we get ourselves a prize pumpkin this year. Other plants are right on time. Our native heuchera doesn't bloom until later, and there's the flower stalks just coming up.
It's starting, yeah.
And some people say, well, why do you let that cranberry volunteer over there by the plumbago? Plumbago is also early. This is normally late, last of July, 1st of August bloomer. It's already in blue bloom. I said, well, I left it there because, hey, it looked kind of cool, and it's a bit of a sacrificial lamb. That's slug damage in there. So you could eat that plant, don't eat anything else. And groundhog likes them. So I leave some to come up and say, go ahead, go eat those. I'll dig it out later. Heliopsis, summer sun. Phlox, tall phlox, just coming up to bloom. Veronica, badly needing deadheading. Nancy and David, I was telling you about this before, that yours won't get like this because you won't let it go this long. But it's full of little tiny bees. And every time I go out there, I go, so I'll cut some of them now, but not all of them, and just cut it back in stages to deadhead it. I am supporting our library. If there's anybody in my near neighborhood in White Lake who wants to support the library, Gwen in our neighborhood garden group has some more signs they'd like to put out. I like this one. It matched our color scheme in our garden. Blues and yellows. Yellow thyme, blue foliage. Prairie dock generally comes into bloom at the time that the goldfinch youngsters are chasing their parents around begging to eat, and they'll sit on the top of this and pluck seeds out of it. It's blooming a bit early this year. I like this plant because it's got these huge leaves, so I get coarse texture, but this flower stalks have no leaves on them. They rise up sometimes 12 feet. They won't get that tall in our garden because it's dry. And then open these sunflowers up at the top. Prairie dock, it's a native. And this kind of space, this is our neighbor's driveway, and we call this Tracy's garden that I planted for Tracy. This space right here, where the garbage can sits, the ground cover's having a hard time getting out here and spreading into it, but that'd be a place where you could use some of that burned down weed killer on it. That's a Veronica, along with Coreopsis and some bird's foot trefoil. That's our bottle brush buckeye. It should be taller, and someday it will be taller. And that's today or yesterday. You can see the smoke.
That was yesterday.
Yeah. This is called fairy candle or bugbane or white snake root. It's a native, and it's just blooming now, back in the shade. It's difficult to get plants that are big flowers or other colors in the shade. White is a natural attractant for pollinators in the shade. You've got a lot of plants in the shade that have white flowers. You're just kind of stuck with that. And I think that's all we got. So.
Yep. Marilyn mentioned they just canceled tomorrow's toll gate work day. And they've lost quite a few to weather. They also had to cancel the open house.
I'm glad.
Um,
I'm glad that they're doing that. It's hard
yeah,
to make that decision. I canceled our gardeners meeting this week. I said we'll do it at another time. And it is not smart to be sick. I almost ran over to the neighbors because he was mowing the lawn yesterday to say, just, you don't need to do it. Your lawn looks great. Don't be out here now. Don't have an internal combustion engine running, and don't put yourself out here exercising in this.
yeah. Ruth also says Keep Growing Detroit pushed back the fall crop distribution by a week because they have lost time to work because of heat and smoke.
And people.
Oh, she's also wondering, should she be burying more squash vine to get it to root more?
Yes, any squash vine, because all the squash plants are susceptible to squash borer, which gets in. It's a caterpillar, and the eggs are laid on the soil at the base of the plant, and they eat into the stem right at root at the level the place where it sprouted, and then they eat inside and can kill the vine. If you keep burying the vine along the way, you'll get roots growing all along the way, and you won't have squash borer kill your whole vine. So it's all of the squashes, other than the squashes that like the zucchini, that's the clump former. But if it's a vine, bury the stems along the way.
She also says her Helianthus
Gigantic.
giganticus is blooming early this year.
Yeah,
So,
even the
yep.
goldenrod looks like it's starting a bit early this year.
And that's all we've got in chat. No hands up or anything. So
It's very good to talk to you folks today.
thank you.
I hope that we all get a chance to get out there soon. Pray for rain to knock the smoke out of the air, or a change in the wind.
That's for sure.
We'll be back with another Free for All Friday on July 24th. That's a week from now. We'll see you then. You tell a friend. Thanks.
Please do. Take care, everybody. Bye bye.